What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Demented One channel. I'm your host, Texxx, and I have kind of a little different show for you tonight. We're going to be discussing something that I've been a fan of since I was a little kid, and still today a huge fan, and that's none other the Nightmare on Elm Street series, movies. And with me, I got a special guest that's going to help me discuss all that, is Blake Best. Blake, welcome.
Thank you, Tex. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. How you doing?
Doing well. Just taking a little bit of a break. Been promoting and work. You know. Oh.
Yeah. I was thinking about the Nightmare on Elm Street movies and everything. I don't think the hype is ever going to die with the fans. Because,
let's hope not.
yeah, true. Because, I mean, years and years has gone by, and it's still as big, I think, today as it was back then. Especially with the hardcore fans. I mean, of course, I know there's probably some others that just don't care anymore, like the newer generation. You know, they want, I guess, more gore than what Freddy brought. But for me, I'm still a huge fan, man. Love it.
You and I both.
Love it. If you don't mind, Blake, let's go ahead and get into this. Before we talk about some other stuff, tell us a little bit about who you are and everything.
My name is Blake Best. I'm a writer, a musician, composer. I work a lot in film, and I just finished up a book, which I'm, in the process of getting all that moving now, and that's pretty much what I do. I write horror.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Now you said you was in a rock band.
I was, and I am up to this point. Yeah.
Oh, you're still okay? Cool.
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
This band is called A Life Below Zero.
Nice. Well, your book, Razor's Edge.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come about with your book? Of course, I know being a Freddy fan and everything, but what's kind of the story behind it, and also what are we going to look for in the book and see?
Well, I'll tell you as much as I can. My agent has, kind of got me kind of hush-hush on things right now because we're going through some procedures. But I was a fan of the films just like you were. I got in contact a few years ago with someone who worked in the nightmare world, so to speak, writing and such. And I got some information from this person, and they helped me out quite a bit and helped me, shed more light on in general, what I wanted for the book was to tell that story, the origin story, the story that we were, we got hints of in, parts 1, 3, and 4, and 5, and a little bit in Freddy's Dead, and a little bit in Freddy versus Jason, and then again in the remake, we touched on it, but we didn't get a whole, clear picture, and we need that to know, the full spectrum of what Freddy is and where he comes from and why he is what he is.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I've always said, I think a movie, if they're going to remake another Freddy or something, I would love to see more of before he was the monster in the dream, so to speak. I mean, he was always pretty much a monster to people, to kids and stuff, but I would love to see that type of movie kind of portraying that era of his life.
Are you familiar with the television show that aired for 2 seasons?
The Freddy's Nightmares?
Yes.
Yeah.
The pilot episode was directed by Toby Hooper, who wrote and directed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it was a pilot that kind of got into that. It was called No More Mr. Nice Guy. Mm-hmm. About 45 minutes long. Pretty intense television. It was aired late at night, so that was kind of why Robert Englund agreed to sign on and do it, because they could get away with stuff like that later on at night, more gore. Right. And overall, the series is pretty disturbing. But that episode kind of touched on, it started at his trial, and with him being let off on a technicality, and then it kind of went from there. But it wasn't enough to satiate the fans. They wanted more, so we got bits and pieces, and that was what I decided to do. This is a unique take, and nobody's ever done it before. So
awesome. Yeah. I enjoyed the Freddy's Nightmares, the TV series. I wish you could find them, to purchase them. Which I did. I got 2 or 3 because I bought the Blu-ray collection of Nightmare on Elm Street, and they put like 2 or 3 of the episodes from.
Yeah, they put Killer Instinct and It's a Miserable Life, neither of which feature Freddy as.
Yeah, that was the only sucky part. He just was at the beginning of it and then kind of in the middle, but never doing what Freddy does, pretty much. Now, moving on.
Okay.
With all the movies, which one, I guess, if it's hard to say, I know, as being a fan, all of them are your favorite. You like them all in different ways. But if you had to pick, which one would be your favorite and why? And then which one would be your least favorite and why?
That's a great question. Excuse me. If I had to pick a favorite, I probably would say Nightmare 2, oddly enough. And I know I'm kind of, jumping the gun and playing devil's advocate there because of the rumors and stuff surrounding the film and some of the content and such. But I liked his makeup in that movie. It was really dark. That was the first film that Kevin Yeager came on to take David Miller's place. David Miller did the original makeup and original design. Well, Kevin Yeager made it look more like a burn victim, and it kind of gave him like a hook nose and just kind of made him really more emphasis on the scarring and really like pulled tight flesh that was like this close to bursting. And it was the eyes with the contacts. He was just really disgusting. There's a scene by the fire at the pool party where they do a close up on him, and it's, oh man, it's great and disturbing all at the same time.
Yeah, I have to give you that with the makeup and stuff. It was definitely good, but unfortunately, that would be my least favorite.
It is for a lot of people.
Yeah, for number 2.
Yeah.
But my favorite, I'll go ahead and let you know mine, but is Dream Warriors, Part 3. I love Dream Warriors. I think because, aside from the first one, but Dream Warriors to me was more kind of realistic because in your dreams you can be anything you wanted to be, and which didn't work out for them, as we know.
Didn't help them too well.
It didn't help. But which one would be your, I guess, your least favorite?
That's a really hard choice. I don't. It's kind of a toss up. I'd say probably Freddy's Dead at this point. Again, to the chagrin of a lot of fans, just because it was so goofy and out there. I mean, on purpose. Rachel Talalay directed, and she had just come off of a John Waters movie called Crybaby. And if you're familiar with John Waters' work, a lot of it's kind of avant-garde and quirky. I'll put it that way. I enjoy his work, but you can tell there's definitely a John Waters influence. The cameos, Alice Cooper, Roseanne, Tom Arnold, and then Alice Cooper and Johnny Depp as the kid on TV, the sister girls, that whole cameo was kind of cool. But yeah, it was just really quirky, and I didn't like the way the makeup looked. And David Miller talked about that before. He's mentioned it. They did a lot of front lighting, and it made the makeup look rubber. I mean, it looked fake in that film.
I can see that. Yeah, it definitely did. But in Freddy's Dead, like we were talking, it kind of did give you a glimpse back of who he was, a little bit, kind of a little, a tease, so to speak, for you.
It did, yeah. There were a few scenes with his daughter, Catherine, and with Loretta, his wife, and those characters are featured in my book too. I go in a little bit more detail about the precariousness of their relationship and all that sort of thing. But that movie was good for that, and the dichotomy between his stepfather, the Alice Cooper character, who was named in that film, and then Freddy was very interesting and disturbing, but it needed to be seen because that helps you understand a little bit of where Freddy's psychosis comes from. Not exactly the best upbringing.
Right. Yeah. Definitely can see that. Speaking of going back to part 2, I think one of the scariest scenes I thought as a child when I seen it was when they were at the pool party, and they were in the closet, and when his tongue comes out, the Freddy tongue, I don't know why, but that would scare the shit out of me back then.
It was very disturbing. One of my friends is Mark Patton. He played the male lead, Jesse Walsh, and he said that wearing that tongue, he had to wear it for like 12 hours, and it was very uncomfortable. It was an 8-inch tongue, and he couldn't smoke. He could barely eat. He could barely drink, and he had to wear it for hours on end. So he was not a happy camper about having to go through that.
He might have Gene Simmons beat with that. Who knows? well, speaking of some of the people you know and stuff within the Freddy franchise and stuff, Lisa Wilcox, you're
Yes.
familiar with. For some people that might not know her by her real name and stuff, could you tell us a little bit about who she is and how you met her?
She was the female lead, the survivor girl, for lack of a better term, in Nightmare. That would be the Dream Master and the Dream Child, and she, beat Freddy, and again, for whatever reason, Freddy has this amazing ability to get torn apart by women. He doesn't judge them very well as a character.
Right.
But yeah, she's the female lead. She did a lot of TV parts. She was in Star Trek: The Next Generation. She was in General Hospital for a time, and MacGyver. She did some guest spots there. We met when I was hosting a podcast. I was asked to put together a retrospective back in January for the entire series of films, starting at part 1 and ending at the remake. So I put together a guest list, and she was one of the guests that I got to come on for the episode, the 2 episodes that dealt with Nightmares 4 and 5. And we met in person, had dinner, she and I and my wife, and in Nashville, which is my hometown, Nashville, Tennessee. And she was doing a convention appearance that was Walker Stalker Con. It was the first time it had ever been to Tennessee, and she wanted to see the city a little bit, so we went to a nice place to eat and just talk shop and all that. She's a great person, and she's a great actress, and I became an even bigger fan of hers after meeting her. I was already a big fan, right, but I became a bigger fan after meeting her. She's just got that disposition. You want to talk. She wants you to talk to her.
Right. Yeah, I seen where, because she's kind of pretty much helped promote your book a little bit on social media and stuff. I seen.
Yeah, she did. She also posted some pictures on Instagram where we were outside the restaurant and stuff. She's a great friend. She's a great professional, and she really relishes that she was able to be part of something as massive as the Nightmare on Elm Street, series of films, because Freddy Krueger's an indelible character. You can't really replace him. He's the first monster with a personality like that, and didn't hide behind a mask or anything like that. A cool weapon, and it just that reinvented horror cinema for me, because up to that point I had seen all the other slashers and stuff, and they're great, but they didn't do anything for me. He did because he was happy about what he did. He reveled in this awfulness that he was, and that was interesting to me.
Right. Yeah. Because Jason and Michael Myers, which I respect. I like some of the movies and stuff, but they didn't have any personality. They didn't talk. But when Freddy came along, here's this guy, with a personality, and you wanted to be afraid of him, but at the same time you liked him. You knew you shouldn't like the guy. And funny story is when I was smaller, and I used to be scared of Freddy, but I would love to watch him anyway. I would always say, I'm not afraid of Jason or Michael Myers because I can just move away and get away from them. But with Freddy, no matter where the heck I went, he could get me because he's going to, in my dreams. And that scared me as a kid, man. It scared the hell out of me.
It's still uncomfortable as an adult if you think about it. I mean, everyone has to sleep. And like you said, the other killers are kind of physical entities. And you can, like you said, move away or, relocate. But everyone has to sleep. If you don't sleep, you start entering a state of psychosis, and then you have trouble differentiating what's real, what's not, if I'm awake and if I'm not. And he's such an interesting character to be able to weave in and out like that. It's like the ultimate kind of, I guess, violation, of a person is to get into their thoughts in their head while they're asleep and stuff, because your sleep is supposed to be the dumping ground for all the stuff that you deal with during the day, and you're sleeping to get rid of all of it. And then I think there's this monster sifting through your psychological garbage,
Right.
It's like, well, I'm going to use that, and I'm going to use that, and then I'm going to kill him, and all that. It was interesting. Nobody else had done it, and Wes Craven, to his credit, was an absolute master and utterly brilliant man to come up with such a frightening concept.
Right. Yeah. I heard Robert Englund one time in an interview, and he was talking about, I'm the one that's in the girl's bedroom. I know the secrets. I know all their hidden thoughts, and he played on that. And like you said, Wes Craven did a great job with that.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah, definitely. Now, speaking of Wes Craven, I want us to discuss a little bit in depth Nightmare on Elm Street, the original,
Okay.
which came out the year I was born, 1984, which is cool. And Wes Craven, he wrote it, directed it, and everything. But there was something that Wes Craven said that he kind of got the idea from the newspapers he would read with people that would claim they were being haunted or afraid of someone in their dreams that was trying to kill them, and then a couple of them actually died in their sleep. Have you remember hearing about that?
I do. The basis to make it clear to all the listeners and people and the viewers and people watching, Wes Craven came across a series of articles mid to late 70s about a series of people. They were South Asian refugees coming to America to escape persecution in the camps, concentration camps and stuff over there. And the kids would come over and they were having these like horrible nightmares, and they were telling their parents, this isn't normal to me. This isn't like a regular nightmare. There's something more here. And they'd stop sleeping, and several of them went 4, 5, 6 days without sleeping, and then a couple of them finally went to sleep, and they fell asleep, gave them their exhaustion. Parents, got pills, they fell asleep. And a couple in particular, the very last one that Wes read, the boy had a coffee machine hidden in his closet under some blankets with like a hidden extension cord and stuff. Yeah. So the parents found it, and they tried to convince him to sleep and all this, and he finally fell asleep. Well, in the middle of the night, they heard him screaming and thrashing about and just like making just a total just mess in his room, like they could hear it. So they went in there to run to him, and he was thrashing around in bed, almost like I guess he had gone to some kind of episode. And by the time they made it to him, everything went silent, and he fell dead right there in the bed. And the family had autopsies done, and they couldn't figure out cause of death. And fairly healthy, child and teenagers, and they were healthy, and there was no cause of death. So Wes detected a hint of a story there. What if? And then he carried on that, and that's I'm paraphrasing and kind of summing that down. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of that. And he had a terrifying experience as a kid, home alone with his older brother. Parents were out to dinner, and he looked out the window, and there was this, I guess, a homeless person that was going down the street, and he had one of those fedora hats and was dirty looking and kind of grungy and mean. And he happened to look up at Wes right when Wes looked out the window, and they made eye contact. And then the man kind of peeked forward and did that.
Yeah.
The curtains back, and then one thing led to another, and then that was it. The idea had been planted between those two events. The homeless man on the street that reveled in making a kid cry, and then this series of stories that planted the stuff for seed for Wes to come up with Freddy.
Right. Yeah. Funny story with the nightmares and stuff. My little boy, when he was younger, he would have night terrors and just wake up screaming, and wouldn't know why, because he'd be still asleep, but he'd wake up just screaming. And I remember that's the first thing I thought about when it first happened was Freddy, which is so funny. Which, of course, it wasn't nothing like it's just something that's it's normal. It happens to kids sometimes. But yeah, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh fuck, Freddy's trying to get him. Now, with Nightmare on Elm Street, and when they were making it, or when Wes Craven was trying to get, I guess, someone to finance it, no one wanted to finance it. He couldn't really find anyone at first, could he?
Yeah, there were a couple of companies he looked to that turned him down. Paramount was one of them. Paramount was famous at the time, Sean Cunningham with Friday the 13th.
Right.
They thought it wouldn't scare anybody. There had been a film like a year or two prior called Dreamscape that kind of dealt with dreams, and it didn't do very well at the box office, so people were kind of hesitant on tackling a movie with dreams in it. But he believed in it, and he pitched it. And finally, a young, entrepreneur film, distribution company head, Bob Shea, believed in the idea and saw the potential, and, helped finance and, raise some money for them to shoot the film. And, it about made the company go broke, honestly, because about I guess halfway through the filming, one of the major lenders dropped out. So in order to get the movie made, Wes had to sell the video rights. He sold them to Media Home Entertainment. Um, and that got the movie finished. But a few of the people I've talked to, makeup men and crew members and stuff, said that there were a couple of times during the filming where they, checks would bounce. I mean, people were going without pay, but they believed in the movie so much they wanted to finish it and knew that if they get out there, that the money would come in, and it did. And Nightmare on Elm Street, was a hit, and yeah, they started commissioning sequels real quick after the first one.
Yeah. One thing, too, I liked about it is with now, these days, the CGI and all of that. They didn't have that then.
No.
And I think it looked great. All the scenes, when he's coming out of the wall over Nancy, in the bedroom scene. Because, we'll get into the remake a little bit later, but in the remake, that was a CGI, of course, you could tell.
Completely CGI, yes.
But in the original, it wasn't. It was, was it Robert Englund that did that, or was it a stunt guy?
From what I remember, it was a stunt guy. What they did was they went and got some spandex and some stuff from one of those stores, and what they did was stretch it across and press your face into it. And apparently that effect cost about, if I remember Robert Englund telling him correctly, about $10 to do that. And that CGI, we'll get into that later, but that's not cheap.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't look that good, in my opinion.
No, it doesn't. It looks fake to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Nightmare on Elm Street had a great cast. Johnny Depp played her boyfriend Glenn, which I think that was Johnny Depp's first ever movie that he started.
It was. He actually was driven to his audition by his roommate, Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, wow. I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. John Saxton, which played her father, which I think he was in a lot of older movies. I think he was in even a movie with Elvis.
He was in a lot of older movies. He was in some movies with Marlon Brando. He was also in Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee, which was a very popular film in '73. He had a distinguished career way before Nightmare on and I was actually thrilled that he landed such an experienced actor because, he had a career by that point that had already been like 30, 35 years in the business, and then he gets in this, little horror film.
Right. And last but not least, the one, the only, Robert Englund as Freddy. Now, you were saying, we were talking about Wes Craven with the guy, when he was younger, he looked down and saw the guy look back up. That's where he pretty much got the idea for Freddy.
Oh, there were a lot of things that gentleman that looked up at him wore. The hat, kind of shuffled, down the sidewalk. Had a particular gait to him, the way he walked, the way he carried himself, and he had I forget how Wes described it, but it was some sort of he was dirty, but he was also slightly disfigured. And it was really dark, and that was something that carried over in the first film. If you remember, a lot of that first film is extremely dark, lots of backlighting, and the makeup that David Miller did was so, kind of overdone that when light hit it from behind, it made things move differently on his face, and the makeup itself was almost like a bit of another cast member because it was really frightening to see. I mean, and the way his eyes looked, the way they would get really large, like when he lops off his fingers at the tree and they squirt out the stuff. I mean, that was something else. That had never been done like that before, so that was quite disturbing. But yeah, his look was based a lot on that. Save for the glove. The glove was a totally original, thought of his. We can get into that later if you want.
Yeah, we'll get into that. And I also heard with, I think it was Wes Craven, I heard in an interview talking about the sweater with the green and the red, is two colors it's hard for the eye to really focus on at the same time, I guess.
Those particular shades, which I believe were burgundy and olive green, are very hard for the eye to encounter. They have a strobing effect, almost like the effect you get when you wear a pair of 3D glasses. So they're very hard for the eye to process. And he wanted originally the sweater to be like red and yellow. This really strange color combination, but they settled on red and green, and it became kind of trademarkable, because like in later films you see red and green, you know that Freddy's coming. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Now, when Nightmare on Elm Street, when it ended, I know Wes Craven at first didn't want any sequels.
correct.
He wanted that to be the one, the only. Nancy wins, and that was it. But
Yeah,
Robert Shea, I guess, kind of had other ideas and talked.
they did. Yeah, they did. And it was more like Bob Shea, helped get the movie made, and he helped come up with a couple of scenes. I don't know if you remember the quicksand stairs scene when Heather Langenkamp is going up the steps, and her feet fall into it. That was from one of Bob's nightmares that he had as a younger man. So that was kind of an integral, very seminal scene in the film. And then the ending, Wes wanted it to be, like you said, standalone. Nancy won, but I think Bob Shea could see into this, almost see into the future a little bit. So he was like, "There's more here. There could be something else. So why don't we do a few endings?" And I've seen all of them. There's 4 different endings, and each of them are a little different than the last. But yeah, the way that it ended left it, the way they finally, agree on it, the ending that they used left it open to interpretation for another film to be made, which, well, Wes, if I remember correctly, I'm paraphrasing here, later said that he was really glad that Bob Shea won that argument.
Yeah.
And they used that ending.
Yeah. Now, for the viewers and stuff that might not know this, but after Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven didn't do 2. Did he do 3? Was it Dream Warriors he came back and helped?
He came back, which it's funny that that's your favorite. That one and the first one and that one are 2 of your favorites because those are the 2 that Wes were involved in prior to New Nightmare. But yes, he wrote a script and a screenplay and executive produced, but the script was rewritten by Chuck Russell, who went on to do The Mask, and then Frank Darabont, who we know from his amazing Stephen King adaptations. So he was a newcomer, and they both sat down and wrote rewrote that script together. But Wes Craven and Bruce Wagner wrote the original draft, and then budget constraints. They just said, "This is a great script, but there's no way we can shoot it on this budget." I think the film had like a $4 million budget, and there was too many effects in that original script, and they would have went broke.
All right. Yeah. Now I want to talk about something kind of controversial, I guess, when it comes to Freddy and the history of who Fred Krueger was.
Okay.
A lot of people just like to say he was a child killer. But I believe Wes has even said in interviews that he was a child molester. If you get to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a point of contention for many years. Originally, he was written as a child molester, but there was a scandal happening during the production of the film where they were filming, and it was about some sort of a child sex ring or something like that. I'm not naming names just because, it's not my business to name those, but they're in history, they're documented. And he changed it because he thought that would be too disturbing outright. I mean, it was always hinted at, like the way Freddie would flick his tongue at somebody, or, how sweet fresh meat, or, any of those amazingly, remarkably disgusting, horrible lines that he would say in those films. But,
Licking the pit.
Yeah, it was implied. Yeah.
Jason versus Freddy or whatever at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because a lot of people like to just, oh, no, he killed children. But, yeah, I remember hearing at least one time that it was originally he was a child molester.
In the remake, they approached that. They take it from that point of view. But in my book, Razor's Edge, he's not a child molester.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. With your book, did you go to that extreme? Or?
No, I mean, I went pretty extreme, but the child molestation angle is not one I approached because it wasn't in Wes's final product in the original film, and the way I see it, my book is a direct prequel to the events of the original film. I didn't experiment. I wrote the book, and then read it, and then read it again, and then watched the original Nightmare on Elm Street after I read it. This was all in the span of a day, 24 hours, and I was, for myself, excited because I I didn't. When you're writing it, you don't know. You know,
Right.
you're writing it because it sounds good in your head, and it's like, oh yeah, this will be great here and here and here, and this kind of interaction here. But you don't know till you read it. And I read it, and I really, I mean, with the exception of going through and doing a couple of drafts, and changing some things later, I really liked the overall bones of it. And then I did my edits, and then watched it again and read the thing again, and I was like, wow, this really works. And I felt almost vindicated in a way because it felt like I was giving a tribute to Wes himself. And there have been some people reviewed it, that have reviewed it. My agent, he read it, he couldn't put it down. He was like, this is great. It's quintessential, which is a word that is not thrown around lightly to me. That's a big deal. So I was like, I thought it was good, but it wasn't until other people thought it was good and it got a buzz about it that I realized it was a monster, in its own right. No pun intended.
Right. Awesome. Well, speaking of the remake, the 2010 remake.
Okay.
I know there's from both sides.
I knew this was coming. It always does.
So many thoughts on this, and I'll just go ahead and tell you mine, and I'll let you talk. But
okay,
I didn't like. I could have liked it maybe, but I'm so spoiled with Robert Englund as Freddy. I guess I couldn't get into it because I was still wanting a Robert Englund and for Freddy. But as far as the other cast, so to speak, I thought it was decent. I couldn't get into. I can't even think of his name. The guy that played Freddy, man. I couldn't.
Jackie Earle Haley.
That's it. Yeah, he played in what was the other movie? He played the superhero.
Watchmen. He was Rorschach. Yeah.
Yeah, that I couldn't get into it. But what's your thoughts?
Okay, let me try to make you feel a little bit better. You're not the first person to bring this up. It was debated on the podcast I did for that particular episode. I think overall, my opinion, because I saw it right as it was released, like a week after it came out in theaters, I think the idea was a great idea, but I think the execution of it was not. I'm trying to, that's, how I feel honestly, about it.
Yeah. I guess that's all we can really say about it.
I mean, it had a big budget. It had a bigger budget than any of the other Nightmare films. It had a budget of about $25 million and ended up making about $110. So prior to that, Freddy vs. Jason was the one that made the most money, but the remake made more money than any of the other ones. But again, I guess it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because you can have something that's a financial success but a commercial failure. I made a lot of money this one time, and I think maybe that's why my situation that I'm going through with my publishing company with acquiring the licensing rights to the franchise is. But I think that's part of the reason. I think that the 2010 film made them rethink licensing out that particular character in that particular film series.
Right. And with it making so much than the remake, do you think maybe it's because the fans they were going expecting the same Freddy they were used to?
And they were going in expecting probably the same Freddy. A lot of the people I know personally that are a little bit older than me, they saw the original films and they were like, wow, there hasn't been one since 2003 with Freddy versus Jason. So it was a 7-year gap between films, and before that it was the one before that was 9 years prior with Wes Craven's New Nightmares. There was a long time between these the last couple of films, and they were ready to see Freddy come back, and I think they went in with their hopes up really high like that, and it didn't deliver for them.
All right. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. Well, Blake, as a fan, we all have our collection Freddy stuff.
True.
I have some. I don't have a huge collection. I have a few things, but I know you wanted to show some of your stuff. And for the viewers, I want to see the glove and the mask too. Also,
you're aware of my prized possessions.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I've got a few other things that I didn't tell you about. Well, first let's do it. You brought the glove up first, so let's do the glove. Got it sitting here next to me. This is a glove, and yes, it is sharp as ever. I cut the daylights out of myself taking that out of the box. This is modeled after a Part 3 glove.
Okay.
And it was built by the guy who puts my gloves person through. I just actually bought 3 that I'm waiting to be delivered. One from Part 1, one from Part 2, and then another one that's like a blend of Part 3 and Part 4. But I'll put it on here. Not to say that I ever wear this. Right. But it does all, it makes all the right noises and all that kind of good stuff. It makes you kind of just want to go, how sweet, fresh sweet.
Right.
That kind
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do it without it. But yeah, that's my glove. It is a noisy thing. Yeah, the mask is a big hit. Let me take off the hat. It was done by David Miller. I bought it online at auction, and he had the original molds and stuff. So yeah, it's a full head mask.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's
one of my favorite pieces. I've got a few other things. I've got the wedding invitation, which I'm trying to make sure I don't move too much away here. But yeah, Robert England signed it. My wife and I sent it to him, and he wrote,
nice.
"Congratulations, see you on the honeymoon."
Well, Blake, where can people find out more about you and your book and stuff?
Okay. You can find out more about me on Facebook. I'm a heavy presence on Facebook, and yes, I do answer all my messages, and I am running my page. I have an agent, and he helps me do other things from myself. It's facebook.com/Shreddy Krueger. That's SHREDDY, and then the word Krueger, and then 1428. I know, it's an addiction.
Yeah, I'll definitely put in some links where people can find you and stuff, where they can just click here and go from there, man. Well, Blake, thank you for coming on, man. It's been great discussing Freddy, man. I love it.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Texxx. I appreciate it.
And I'm sure you'll definitely be on here in the future, and we'll discuss some more stuff with Freddy.
Well, we've still got several of the movies here out there.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for this show. And y'all know the deal. Until next time, stay safe and always stay demented.